I'm very happy to introduce to you Link President and General Manager Mike Borges.
Chris, is this on? Hello? Yeah, got it. It is now my pleasure to introduce today's keynote speaker. Brian Solis is a world-renowned futurist, digital anthropologist, 8-time best-selling author, and international keynote speaker. Brian also serves as the head of global innovation at ServiceNow, and he has consistently been recognized as one of the world's leading thinkers in innovation, business transformation, and new leadership for over 2 decades. Forbes has called him one of the most creative and brilliant business minds of our time. ZDNet said that Brian is one of the 21st century business world leading thinkers. And the conference board described Brian as a futurist that we all need right now. Brian travels the world to help executives and audiences embrace change and learn about what's coming next and why, and to take a leading role in shaping the future for what they want to see. He has a unique gift for humanizing these trends and making transformation and innovation purposeful, inspiring leaders to reimagine the future and motivate those around him. With a loyal online audience of over 800,000 people, Brian is a sought-after thought leader to both leading brands, to celebrities like Oprah, Shaq, and Ashton Kutcher, and startups around the world. Will you all please join me in giving Brian a warm child nutrition welcome? Link is really proud to sponsor this session.
Thank you, Michael.
Brian, we have a question for you. All the people in this room play a role in serving nutritious meals to kids. What we all want to know is, what does the future hold for child nutrition, and really what should we be thinking about transformation and innovation in serving the next generation of these tech-savvy kids and parents?
It's not even lunchtime yet. You figured that out before noon. All right, thank you, Michael. I'm going to try to answer that as best I can in the next 60 minutes, because that's a big question. How many of you in this room have life figured out? And now we have to fix the entire industry. But it is also what's so special about these times. I've been a futurist for the last, oh my gosh, I don't even want to say out loud, a long time. I've never seen change like I have right now. Ask anyone in technology, and they will say the same thing. That's because with AI, everything is now exponential, whereas before 2022, when ChatGPT launched, everything before 2022 was linear. We always expected things to double in speed and capacity every 12 to 18 months. And so it would just kind of look like this. And now it looks like this, where AI is already testing at an IQ of 155, and it's expected to exponentially grow from there to become incalculable. But before we get into PowerPoint slides, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for all you do. And I actually mean that from the bottom of my heart. My 8-year-old, she just turned 8 on the 27th of December, is part of your program. And she loves it. She eats everything. And I read somewhere that what she eats as part of the program is half or just greater than the calories she needs to live a healthy life every day. So thank you. And so when I was putting together this presentation, I took it to heart because we have some things to solve for. So let's jump in. By the way, this is a funny picture. I took this picture in 2021, and what you see here is me trying to fit into that blazer. Holding it shut. I think it shrunk during COVID. Yeah, so I spend time really learning about what you do at every capacity. In fact, if any of those sponsors that were listed are in this room, I also work with a lot of you. A lot of your C-suites and your CEOs trying to figure all of this out. We're all trying to figure this out. But at the end of the day, it's not about the technology, it's about what you do with it. It's how you understand its potential in what you do. And more importantly, it is one of those, I'd say once in a lifetime moments, but we sure have had a lot of those lately, where you look within to ask yourself, where do you want to be this time next year? Because this is that moment where it isn't just, I want to be better, faster, healthier. It's not just the typical New Year's resolutions. It's actually about a life-changing moment. How do you want to think differently? How do you want to see things differently? The thing about this moment that we're in is that you can't put the genie back in the bottle. It's unlocked now. And it's created a level of enthusiasm that is unprecedented. But I want you to think about it this way. It isn't something that you have to figure out what to do with it. It is something that you actually use to make you more exponential. See, technology up until this point, say whether it's a computer or a laptop or a smartphone, we used it to do the things that we do every day better, faster, at scale. AI actually allows you to do the things you couldn't do before. And I know you're going to get a deep dive, I believe it's tomorrow, with another keynote. But I want you to go into that session. I want you to leave Orlando thinking about how you can use these tools to do what you didn't do or couldn't do yesterday. And that's the mind shift where all of this starts. Because certainly, for better or worse, technology has actually made us not ready for this moment. It's automated us in many regards. This is an artist's creation that just kind of shows that we're getting stuck in our phones and maybe even becoming a little bit more addicted to mindless scrolling as computers are getting smarter. How many of you in this room have used generative AI in some form? That's a really good show of hands. Everyone else, I'd like to see those hands up next year. By next year, we should all have used it. For those who have used it and those who haven't used it, a model like ChatGPT, for example, just to kind of level set, what makes it so wild is that this is artificial intelligence that was trained on publicly available information. I mean, just imagine how much information, like the internet. It's learned from books and music and annual reports and everything that's available, and it's just sucked it all in and started to parse the data. It recognizes a picture. That's an elbow. That is hair. That's a table. And all of this training has made it possible to do the things that you do with it today. So now we compare. Which way do we want to go? Anyone with children understand this. How many people will actually remember this moment? They won't. Most of those people actually weren't in the moment. They saved it or used it for Instagram. Nothing wrong with that. But this is how many of us have to figure out that life is no longer what it was, and many of us aren't actually ready for it. And so this is that moment where we let it in. We don't feel overwhelmed by it. We don't feel threatened by it. Because those who embrace it become distinguishable from those who do not. For years, I've studied what I've called digital Darwinism. Every technology revolution has further changed our trajectory as a society, as employees, as leaders. But for the most part, if you think about just the incredible revolutions of the personal computer or the smartphone or the internet, we've just sort of adapted those tools and just went along as business as usual. These tools helped us do what we did yesterday better today, faster today, more capable today. This is that moment, though, where it's no longer good enough. How many remember Kodak? That film, those things? My goodness. In fact, I still say, oh, I'm going to film that. There's no film in my camera. There's no film in my phone. But the new Kodak moment isn't that moment of nostalgia. That new Kodak moment is sort of reflecting on what changed and asking yourself, did I change along with it? Using it isn't changing. How you use it is changing. In the 1970s, there was a big movement called Future Shock, which was predicting that all of these technology revolutions were going to come out and shock the world. And what it did do, and it still does today, is it shocks us into complacency. Like, oh, I'm too overwhelmed, I don't know what to do with it. And so we just get training, we figure things out, and we just evolve. We don't really think about, how do I change? How do I evolve? I work in innovation. I work with pretty much every company around the world. And when I work with leaders, I see leaders not opening their mind to the newness of what's available to them. I see a lot of pressure, having to perform, having to deliver numbers, having to think about digital transformation as digitizing yesterday's work, and how expensive that is, and how time-consuming that is, and how resource-intensive that is. And everything just suddenly becomes a cost center, like it's all just too much. We know we have to do it, but how can we do it for the least amount of money, with the least amount of resources as possible, with the least amount of human resource shifts towards these new trajectory? Instead, we have to ask ourselves, what's the role that I play in the future? Starting with me. Because we could all be overwhelmed, we could all be skeptical about it, we could all say, that doesn't affect me, but it does. And right now, all the numbers show that companies and leaders and employees who are waiting to be told what to do are always on the wrong side of innovation. Every single one of us plays a role. Every single one of us has a voice in what we could do differently, what we could do better, and what we as individuals can do differently and we can do better. And that voice needs to be heard, because I can tell you with all the certainty in the world that decision makers in leadership positions do not know what to do. They fake it really well. And if they don't figure it out, then they leave with a big paycheck. And that's not the way this world works. We actually need people to rise up and define what leadership looks like in an entirely new world. Only 7% of companies in this world are digitally savvy. That isn't even AI savvy, that's just digitally savvy. But those companies that are changing for the times, leadership that's changing for the times, outperform everybody else. And it's no surprise that that's true. But now think about it this way, it's exponential. So the more literate they become with all of these technologies, the more that they figure out how these technologies can help change, even at your level, what you show up at 8 o'clock in the morning or 7 o'clock or 9 o'clock, whatever time that is, when you show up, what are you doing differently? How are you thinking differently? Because this is how we change our trajectory. And that word exponential, you're going to hear me use it a lot. We're no longer growing linearly. As individuals, as workers, as leaders, that 48% that you see here will be 148% next year. And it'll be 390% 2 months after that. And then we'll be in the 4 digits months after that. That's how fast all of this is going to start to change. That change starts with us. I watched a video, I put it on social media the other day, of shopping in Blockbuster Video in the 1990s. And it was just random clips like B-roll. And it was so like, wow, I can't even, someone pulled out cash and paid with money? I haven't seen that in a long time. You know, there was a moment when Blockbuster, I don't know if you've heard this story, Blockbuster had its Kodak moment. There was a moment where Netflix, the founders of Netflix, tried to sell the company to Blockbuster. And I think the number was $50 million. And Blockbuster said no. And there's a famous quote from a financial technology analyst that was advising the C-suite of Blockbuster, and they said, the threats of technology are overstated. I wonder if that person still has a job. I mean, that is your job, to analyze this as a trend and advise executives on what to do about it. So the funny thing about this is, just like Kodak, Kodak didn't not do digital. They eventually got to it. Blockbuster did introduce its own streaming video service. Failed, of course. But I want you to think about this. If Blockbuster acquired Netflix, Netflix would be dead. We wouldn't have it. And that is because you're putting something new with people who have yesterday's mindset. They haven't changed how they think about this stuff. They haven't let it in. They didn't let it in because they believe they have something to learn. They didn't let it in because they feel like, yeah, maybe at this age in my life, at this position in my life, I could learn something new. I could try something differently. Instead, they were stubborn. They fell into the trap. We all fall into this trap. That everything we've learned, everything we've done, has gotten us to this position where we are today, and therefore we've earned it, and now we can coast, or we can ride. We can't do that anymore. We have now all officially re-enrolled in school. There's nothing wrong with that. I have not studied, I've not undergone so much sense-making like I have since 2022. That is the transformation year of when AI hit the consumer market, and nothing has grown faster than that. This is a quote from Jorge Paulo. He's, I gotta say his full name. I call him JPL, but he runs some of the biggest brands in the world. And we were at a conference that explored all future technologies, not just AI, everything, spatial computing, augmented reality, virtual reality, automation. And he was interviewed, I think for a TV show or a documentary afterwards, and this is what he said: "I'm a terrified dinosaur." What he's basically saying is that he's been looking at all of this stuff through the lens of how he does business. Right? And the way that he does business is mass distribution, automating that distribution, those logistics, marketing the brand, and now everything has changed. The consumer's changed, the supply chain has changed, competitors have changed, how people eat has changed, and is only going to continue to change. And that's the paradox of innovation. No one taught us how to think like this in school. How we learn is linear. We're rewarded for how well we learn and perform within those constraints. At work, we learn linearly. We're rewarded for how we work within those guardrails. And then something like AI or Apple's Vision Pro, which launches in a couple of weeks, comes out. Like, now what? Now what do I do with this? I'll just do what I always do, because the rules haven't changed. How I'm measured hasn't changed. Well, for the leaders in the room, that's where that starts too. We have to encourage people around us to want to learn and change. You have to incentivize people to want to learn and change. Raise your hand if change is easy. And oftentimes it sucks, to be honest, but it's where we are. I can't change that. But yes, I can. It's a perspective. You know, Muhammad Ali used to say that he hated training. He hated going to the gym so early in the morning. He hated running. But the way he shifted his perspective was he just visualized what greatness looked like. He visualized what being a champion looked like. And he let that drive him. He let that guide him. You could call that manifestation. You put the laws of the universe in place. Whatever works for you, shift your perspective. Yeah, it's different. It's not easy. I knew about this much regarding AI just over a year ago. And I just published, you could look it up, it's called the Gen AI Prism. It's an entire analysis of the generative AI landscape and how it's organized and how to use it to be exponential with it. I couldn't do that a year ago. And I spent nights and weekends figuring that out because I also have a day job. But it reminded me of when I was coming up, going to night school, trying to work and learn at the same time. And that's the paradox of where we are. Because unless someone tells you to do it and pays you to do it, we go and do the things that we do because that's what normal is. That's our routine, and we all want to be successful within that routine. And so if you think about in school and in work, what happens if you go outside the rules? What happens if you break the rules? What happens if you challenge those rules? You're scolded for it. There's risks and consequences for going against those rules. And now here comes innovation and change, asking you to go against everything that we've learned throughout our entire lives as being bad. When I say the word fail, what do you think? Not for me. Yet it's the word right now that we have to embrace. Try something new, probably not get it right the first time, and fail. What do you do then? You try again. You try again. No champion started out that way. And so the paradox of innovation is that we're actually asking you to go against all of the things that you use to define success today. Companies, organizations, schools are all designed to be bad at innovation. Nothing wrong with that. And it's worked for a really long time. But I can tell you, especially those sponsors that were on the board, some of those larger companies, this is exactly where my work kicks in. It's because it's not, just because that's the way it was, doesn't mean we'll figure it out. Not anymore. All of this actually has to change. And you have to believe within yourself that you are part of that change and that you don't have to wait for someone to tell you to go figure out this stuff. When ChatGPT hit the market, students did what students do. They used it to do their homework. That's not unlike what CEOs do at companies. When new technologies come out, they just use it the way that they've used technology forever. They actually haven't stopped to say, well, what should we think about differently? Because that's exactly what we should be asking. Because otherwise you end up with what's called iteration. See, a lot of times when we think about things like automation or AI or big data, you name the tech trend, we think it's innovation because it's new to us. Oh, wow, this is crazy. But when we stuff it into our machine, it comes out as iteration, which is just doing the same things better, faster, cheaper at scale. And this is a key differentiator, and you think about in your work, am I using technology to do the same things better, or am I using technology to do something new? Because that's what innovation is. Just said simply, doing new things that create new value. So for example, in my work, when something like automation comes out, executives do what executives do, just like kids do what they do with AI in their homework. Executives say, oh, automation and AI, we could cut staff. We could save so much money. Instead of saying, if we train people on this stuff, what could they do that they couldn't do yesterday? How much more productive could they be? How much more could we unlock in terms of value creation? Because every company that cuts people and every company that builds people, you're going to create a delta in performance and market value. Let me tell you. And so I spend all my time reprogramming executive brains to think exponentially, because when you do that, you create what's called disruption, doing the new things that make the old things obsolete. When you cut, when you automate, you're actually investing in your own obsolescence. When you create value, starting with yourself, you become the disruptor. It's a choice. And for everybody that's waiting, you're not just on the wrong side of innovation. This is an example of iteration. Think about how incredible TVs are today. And they all ship with a remote control. Because someone somewhere along the way decided that these things didn't have to be reimagined. They just needed more buttons. Now, on average, the remote control has 70 buttons on it. I don't know about you, but I have a remote with 70 buttons and a voice button, so I only use one button. So it is breaking out of this cycle of just building on yesterday's methods and processes. Look, we've gotten so good at just following the rules that we never stop to really ask ourselves, do those rules work today? Are those the best rules for tomorrow? Not to freak everyone out, but technology is only speeding up. And it's only going to keep speeding up. This is called the hype cycle. The hype cycle is published by an analyst group called Gartner in the technology industry, and it's sort of like everybody pays attention to this. And this is just one sliver of all of the technologies that they're tracking. And the reason it's called the hype cycle is because it gets really popular without actually finding killer ways to be used, and so then it becomes unpopular, and then people figure out how to use it, and then it finds its momentum. So for example, the metaverse. Ooh, everything's going to be the metaverse. Facebook changed their company name to Meta. Then where's that going? And now it's Apple, and Apple's turn, coming out this month. It'll find its footing, it'll find its momentum. But I showed this to you to show you just how many things are on the horizon. that you haven't heard about yet. And they will all find their footing at some point. So we have to be mentally, spiritually ready for this stuff. We need that mindset to shift, to see these things not as just overwhelming. Look, I even feel they're overwhelming, but to see them as opportunities. Because that mindset, in a time where everybody is just exhausted or skeptical, or we can't do that, or we'll find every single reason why that's not for us, or every single reason why that's too complicated or too expensive, there's going to be someone like you who says, no, actually, I know what to do with this.
Just learn how to get stuff done. And what I mean by that is, I've seen at every level people who are very good at describing problems, people who are very sophisticated in explaining why something went wrong or why something can't get fixed. But what I'm always looking for is, no matter how small the problem or how big it is, somebody who says, let me take care of that. If you project an attitude of whatever it is that's needed, I can handle it and I can do it, whoever's running that organization will notice, I promise.
I second that. All I work in is possibilities. The greatest challenge I've had throughout my entire career isn't explaining this stuff. It's convincing people that they need to do something about it. I got into tech because I was a geek and I was so excited about it. I've since become a psychologist. I didn't even go to school for that. Because things are becoming more and more magical. And if all we see are the problems, then we won't see the potential. This is your next display. It'll be your phone, it'll be your laptop, it'll be your tablet. These are drones on New Year's in London. You know, I live in a place during the winter. Well, not this winter, but it's Lake Tahoe, and you know, fireworks over the lake are magnificent. And we've had back-to-back wildfires over the last few years, and so parts of Lake Tahoe are saying, well, let's try drones. And of course, you get everybody who says, oh, drones suck. No, they don't. This is augmented reality in the kitchen. I promise you, I will use this the minute it's available. This is a demonstration of augmented reality in a garage. This is available right now. So just because we don't use it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. People are already starting to teach themselves how to do this because there isn't really a school for it. And yes, it's TikTok. It's my secret addiction. Imagine not even having to park your car. Well, it exists. This is a store on a beach here in Florida. Do we even need retail space anymore? I don't even know. Would you shop here? It's not the question. Why would someone do it? And how does it change their behaviors? Because it's happening. This is a robotics company that creates things that are really creepy. You've seen these videos on the internet, so they make these dog-looking creatures, they make humanoid creatures that can do a lot of things that we can do. When this video came out, I posted it on social media and I said, "Happy holidays from Skynet." Thank you, Terminator fans. This is a drone delivery in China, and we were having conversations earlier today how in Texas, actually, Walmart has already flown 60,000 drone deliveries in suburbs, and they've just announced that they're going to increase that volume substantially. So is Amazon. So these are things that are already taking place. In China, you can take essentially a big drone with no pilot from point A to point B. I also will try this after many tests. This is coming to you in February.
You could experience your favorite stories in unexpected ways. Or in unbelievable places. You could do more than just watch sports. You could be at the game without leaving your home. Or be part of the action like never before. What if you could travel on a National Geographic adventure from your couch? Or if your imaginary friends weren't quite so imaginary? What if you could bring Disney World into your world?
This is Disney's promo for Apple's Vision Pro. It's wild how much things are going to change overnight. Let me tell you, the minute you put those goggles on, it will change your life. And I say that like as a human being. It gives me goosebumps just to think about what it was like. Yes, it's $3,500. It's not meant for us. My wife won't let me buy it at all. Trying to get my company. We need this for testing, which we do. Keep telling myself that. But in reality, it's like the first generation of Apple Watch. That wasn't a hit either. But it's just meant to get you ready for the next iteration. And there are probably already 2 or 3 iterations behind that $3,500, trying to get it down to the consumer price point. But think about your phone. Your phone's $1,000. The reason why this is really cool, aside from what you just saw in terms of Disney, is that when you wear it, it has 12 cameras, and it's watching what you do. It's going to introduce a new type of interface. So think about how we use a phone today. You're going to use in air new gestures. But more importantly, say you're out in a playground playing with your children. It can capture the moment immersively. It captures the sound as you turn, it changes. It's basically capturing what you see. And you know how when you get, for those who have iPhones, I don't know if Droid does this, but iPhones, it gives you memories of, through your pictures, through your camera roll, of things that happened at this day last year or 5 years ago. Imagine wearing this and having that moment with your children in a playground come up 5 years from now. And you hear it, you see it, you will cry. All of these things are not just coming out, they're changing how we can think and how we can solve problems and how we can work. There are plenty of people who will see all this stuff and not change how they think, not see the problems, and not change how they're working. So that's the choice we make. Because every innovation, why it matters, why I'm a digital anthropologist as well, is because every big technology revolution changes behaviors. Anyone with kids who has an iPad knows this. Just try taking it away from them. I watched this at the Denver airport yesterday. I needed earplugs. Every evolution has changed consumer behaviors, which changes behaviors in how we work, which changes student behaviors. Yet we haven't changed all that much, and we've run out of time. AI is the first disruption that is changing behaviors, again, exponentially, where we now face the choice of figuring this stuff out and becoming part of it, or just saying, I'm just going to be obsolete. I'll give myself 10 years, and there we go. What's next is the question, right? Spatial computing, that's 2024. That's Apple's thing. What's after that? Something for sure. Every single one of these technologies has changed behaviors. For example, the little red dots at the bottom are people who make phone calls on cell phones. The big burgundy numbers are people who use data. So Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Snapchat, Message, iMessage. We have changed how we consume and how we communicate. Pictures taken by cameras are the black in this scale. Pictures taken by phones are red. Gum sales since the iPhone came out. Some people look at this chart and say, oh my gosh, the iPhone has everybody distracted at checkout. No one's paying attention to those point of purchase displays like they used to. It's corollary. It's true. Most people are on their phones all the time. It's not because of the iPhone, though, but it is because of behavior change. People just don't buy gum the way they used to. They don't buy a lot of things the way that they used to. It just happens to coincide with the iPhone. But it is a visual demonstration of just how fast things change. And I'm going to give you an example of what a digital anthropologist does. I think we could all imagine what a futurist does, but a digital anthropologist. So I did some work with a company you might have heard of. One of the things that we studied was the competition. And the competition, you could imagine, well, that's Lyft, or you name a certain app. Well, I also tried to look at the secret invisible competition. And I gave it a name: accidental narcissism. Smartphones make us more narcissistic. We need to move faster. We need things to be for us. Nothing can be the best. If I order curbside pickup at my grocery store, it is amazing the first time I do it, but then not fast enough the second time I do it. I need parking spaces closer. But Uber, the secret competitor was accidental narcissism. So I didn't study competitors. I studied how long was too long to wait for an Uber before you opened the Lyft app. And every year that number dwindled. Dwindled, to the point where the company still advertises the average pickup time on traditional billboards so that it conditions you not to even think about opening the other app. 3 minutes is good enough for me, which, by the way, five is that magic number, 5 or less. I was at the airport. I ordered a Lyft because Uber wasn't available for some reason. It was 10 minutes. I caught myself. I was like, what's going on? This is ridiculous. Oh. Okay, Bryce, just 10 minutes. Go to the bathroom. I posted this on what used to be called Twitter. Don't get me started on that, the other day. And it was a survey, it was a poll. What podcast listener are you? Regular speed, 1.2, 1.5, 1.75, and as you can see, only half of people listen to podcasts at regular speed. I call this TikTok brain, by the way. I've studied this in students. I could bore you with all this design stuff, but I have studied that things like TikTok and Instagram Reels speed up your brain. You're constantly scrolling. You can never get enough satisfaction, and that's called neuroplasticity, right? It's not just a quirk. Your synapses are learning how to fire and process information differently. And so one of the things I studied is, well, what does that brain do when you give it a paper book? There are some problems there that we've got to solve as well. But to the point is, that society's moving faster and faster. I got a lot of comments, well, hey, I don't see 2 or 3x. Like, wow, that's like listening to Alvin and the Chipmunks. I don't know if, I mean, do you really getting information? Well, yeah, it's getting worse. People who use TikTok are demanding that musical artists record songs at 1.5x speed as well so that they can do more dances. So remember when they made records and you had an A side, which was the single, and then the B side was the remix? That's exactly what's happening here. I mean, think about the problems we have in our day-to-day life. I mean, this was what happened at the airport yesterday with that 6-year-old. One of these failed. This is a real sidewalk in China. Now, I want you to ask yourself, have you ever walked behind someone on their phone? Yep, they are not moving as fast as they think they are. So one side of this sidewalk is for people that have some place to be at a certain time, or just want to look around. Not that it's bad or anything. This is the time to 100 million users. TikTok took 9 months to get to 100 million users. And look at what it's done to our society. ChatGPT took 2 months to get to 100 million users. Instant societal shift. Every executive I talk to is asking how AI is going to change their digital transformation strategy. Basically, not one has asked me, how is AI changing behavior? How does that change how we think about employee experience? How does that change how we think about customer experience? What do we need to do differently as a business? What does my business model need to look like in an era of AI, knowing that it's changing behaviors? These are estimates of when AI will be able to perform your job. I will move past that quickly. But I just want you to look at what AI is already able to do. This is someone who's just touching stuff, and look at the picture on the screen. We can't even imagine the exponential possibilities that we can unlock with this. So going into the future thinking that we're just going to do what we did yesterday now with AI, new and improved. Too much of the world is changing. It's never going back. One of these is a human being. Let's see if we can get this to play. Get technology and work in action right here. Can you play that back there? No? There we go. We'll go back. Never mind. The still was good enough. One of those was a human being. The other one is created with a Gen AI product called Hey Gen. And essentially, it just analyzes you. One picture will do, but it's just got to get enough of you. It listens to you, and it recreates you. It's pretty freaky until you try it, and then you can do some fun things with it. This is an influencer who has gotten really popular pretty fast, except she's not real. There's a big story in the paper recently about famous people sliding into her DMs and asking her out. They're really just talking to a dude behind a computer. This is a real robot out of Stanford. They've programmed it to do 50 tasks. This will be in your home in your lifetime, I promise you. Yeah, right? You're already seeing applications for it. Christmas next year. Right? With every scenario, it's like, yes. What does this cost again? Financing? Sounds great. We could do this all day. But for those who are my age, yeah, who would have thunk in your lifetime? And here it is. Here it is. So this is the intersection that we stand at. Starts with ourselves. When you get back to work, and you look at all the things you have to do, and you look at all the problems that you're trying to solve, there are going to be more problems to solve because of this. And so I think back to that video where Obama says, that person with the can-do attitude is the person who stands out. Even if we don't have all the answers, we just commit to seeing not the problems, but the possibilities. Because that decision is what we call in the business true ROI, return on investment. You're investing in yourselves. There's another side to ROI. It's actually the name of my newsletter. Return on ignorance. There's a cost for not doing that as well. And it's never been more profound than today. So if you're waiting for someone to tell you what to do, you know which side you're on. This is your moment to do something, to future-proof not just your work, but yourself. I'm working with my teams to figure this out for themselves before we figure it out as teams and in our work. This is drawn by a friend of mine called Gaping Void. They run a culture transformation studio here in Florida because they recognize that all change is actually human. Innovation is just a code word for leadership, and leadership is not the same thing as management. Managers are holding us to yesterday's standards and yesterday's processes, yesterday's measures of success. Leadership is recognizing what's new and different and what we can do about it as individuals and together. Because the role of today's leader is to see all this stuff and to create a future that would not have otherwise happened. Because the future is going to happen to you or because of you. And we've let it happen to us time and time again. We react to everything. In fact, the very nature of life itself is reaction. When something happens with your car, I gotta make time to take this in. Something happens to your health, the same thing. We react when it's a problem. So don't wait for this to be a problem. This is a visual. I used DALL-E, a generative AI product, to imagine for me the power of AI in my work. I'm the little person. AI is helping me move this rock I wouldn't have been able to move otherwise. And that's the visualization for how you think about all of these technologies.
Education is a big challenge now. If we do not change the way we teach, 30 years later we'll be in trouble. Because the way we teach, the thing we teach our kids are the things the past 200 years is knowledge-based. And we cannot teach our kids to compete with machine who is smarter. We have to teach something unique that is machine can never catch up with us. Value, believing, independent thinking, teamwork, care for others. These are the soft part. The knowledge may not teach you that. Folks, that's why I think we should teach our kids on sports, the music, painting, art. So making sure humans should be different from everything we teach should be different from machine. If the machine can do better, you have to think about it.
Put that on a Christmas card. Steve Jobs once said that technology alone is not enough. It's technology married with liberal arts, married with humanities, that yields the results that make our hearts sing. That was his driving philosophy at Apple. The soft skills, I don't think any of us really think they're soft. They're actually very hard skills. We don't learn those skills. And like he said, machines will know and do perform knowledge better than any of us. In just this year's time alone, machines will be smarter than us. So what do we do about it? Think about that rock and how we use these tools to unlock the capabilities within us that we didn't have yesterday. And keep doing that, and keep doing that, and suddenly you'll be in a place where you don't even recognize who you were just a year ago. I've asked the association to provide these slides to you because we're not going to read through all of this. But I did spend some time thinking through what you could do differently in your work with these technologies, and I put them all on some slides to maybe spark some creativity, spark some imagination, spark some collaboration. Think about things differently. Think about things for a new world. Be the leader who creates the future that would not have otherwise existed. Think of it as a personal mission statement, if you will, or a vision statement. A statement of the destination is not a substitute for the roadmap, the steps you take differently to get there, and how you measure your progress to this new horizon, because those become the parameters of your new rules. Because yesterday's rules don't cut it anymore. Johnny Ive is one of the designers of the famous Apple products some of you use. And he was asked recently to define what the word company means. I could talk to a lot of people in my line of work. What's a company? A company is, something that's established to create, build, sell, profits, products, all kinds of stuff. This is how he described it. It's uniting people around purpose and empowering everyone to do their best work along the way. That's really all it is. Like Jack Ma said, it's just human. So take this definition and think about what you're going to do with these new technologies to do the best work you could do, while also redefining work itself. Because this is, even though it sounds threatening, it's actually an opportunity. There will be those who just sit in place, who just find the problems, who just describe why we can't do everything, find every reason why they're not going to change. They will be on one side, and those who invest in themselves and in those around them will be in another place entirely. This is a moment to remember that great leaders not only challenge the status quo, they also inspire and support their people by focusing on the uncertainty, the anxiety, and the fear that moving into the unknown creates. Managers ignore it. Great leaders embrace it. And that starts with embracing it within yourself. Thank you very much.